देखो सेट हो रहा है बीच में पीछे।
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of our LinkedIn Live series, Human Edge Meets AI, where we explore how to thrive in the AI age. I'm your moderator, Ida Nair Sharma. Today's topic is AI is going to transform every industry, what leaders must understand now. We are joined by Nitin Seth, a global leader, CEO, co founder of Incido, and best selling author of three books on digital, data, AI, leadership, and future of work. His latest book, Human Edge in the AI Age, offers practical insights for anyone who's looking to thrive in the AI driven world. Welcome, Nitin, and thank you for joining us today and speaking to us again.
Good morning, Ida, or rather, good evening for all the viewers in India. Good morning, of course, for my friends in the US, and very much looking forward to our conversation.
Superb. Thank you. In the first episode, we discussed what makes the AI age fundamentally different, right? How AI is rapidly surpassing human capabilities and the journey that brought us here. In today's episode, we will dive deeper to understand how AI is rewriting the rules of the business, the forces that are driving these changes, the new business models that are emerging, and what it means for both legacy enterprises and the new age companies. We would like to make this session as interactive as the last one. So please keep your questions pouring in and we will try to take as many as we can. To begin with, I will kick things off and then we will switch to audience questions. So keep them coming. So shall we jump right in, Nitin?
Absolutely.
Awesome. In your book, Nitin, you talk about complete reinvention across industries in the AI age, right? And they are driven by predominantly by four forces. You say that is hyper personalization, automation, innovation, and new business models. However, you also say that most of these transformations today seem to be over indexed on internal efficiencies and automation. Why do you say that? And what, according to you, is the right approach?
Yeah, that's a right starting point for today's conversation, Ida. So, yeah, there is a lot happening with AI. It's impacting businesses in multiple ways, and kind of thinking about the four forces: personalization, automation, innovation, and new business models is a good way of thinking about it. It kind of gives a frame in how you apply AI in a kind of a practical and structured fashion. And yes, I think 80 to 90% of use cases that I see today with my clients and even otherwise are internal, are more automation driven. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Uh, you know, it is, but I think right now we have to recognize that with that we are only accessing like a fraction of the AI transformation opportunity.
Right.
um, there is a much much bigger opportunity out there with innovation and with changing the customer proposition. Most, especially here in North America, there are so many industries where the organic growth is really really stunted, and then that's
Mhm.
perhaps the biggest thing you can do for the business, which is how do you find new avenues of growth. And I think that's where a lot of the focus should go. Now, why so much of focus on automation? Because it is more obvious. It is more obvious. It's right in front of us,
Mhm.
and it is about the existing processes that exist. Whereas the moment you do anything on the customer side and the innovation side, it is about envisioning or re-envisioning the future, and that is more difficult to do. So that is a key reason, why it's easier to just focus on automation because it's kind of like a given. It's in front of us, whereas more customer and innovation driven, requires more creativity. There's another reason, and which is regulation. Many industries like financial services and healthcare are highly regulated. So the moment you touch the customer, there are a lot of considerations. Whereas internally, it's open season. You can do a lot more. So yeah,
Yeah.
these are couple of reasons why there is so much of a focus on automation. But at least to my mind, there needs to be a better balance between the internal and the external.
Okay. But then, as I see, nearly every enterprise is claiming to be doing AI in some form or the other. So, what does it mean to be truly AI native, according to you? And how does it, what distinguishes it from the traditional digital models?
See, every company today, whether large, small, legacy, new, is doing AI. But what they're really doing is, again, what I mentioned in the previous question, that they are looking at the existing processes, existing way of doing work, existing business model, and trying to tinker with that. Yeah. So think of it as, AI as an add-on, or something, you're putting as, AI as a tool. But for me, AI native is about thinking about putting AI at the core, where you step back from the way you do work today, and you say, this is my goal, and now, using AI, how do I rethink that process? That is being AI native. That is being, using the real power of AI. So yeah, so that's the difference. That's how also where the legacy from digital transformation still runs strong. Because the essential thought process behind digital was to take what is physical, what is existing, and convert that into digital. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So that was very much the thought process. And I think right now, most of when we say AI transformation is really an extension of that digital transformation philosophy. Whereas we need to recognize that AI is a step change. The
Hmm.
physical to digital was a big change,
Yeah.
but while AI seems to be on that technology continuum
Hmm.
from digital, but the magnitude of that shift, personalization, automation, innovation, new business models, those four headings are not new. Those four headings are not new. But the magnitude of shift possible on each of those four is very, very significant. And that's why it's a different thing. And that's why it is very important that, unlike digital transformation, which was really about changing or improving what was existing, and that kind of worked fine. That is not an approach, which will likely work in the AI age. It will require, again, not just focus on the existing, but to re-envision it based on the goals that you have.
Right. So what's interesting that I find where you say that the four forces are not new, but the extent of impact or the transformation is at a very different level now. Yeah. So in that case, Nitin, you've also observed that some of the industries are pulling ahead in this AI native transition, right? Why do you think that some industries are ahead of the curve and they're able to reinvent themselves with AI faster, whereas others lag behind?
It's See, the broader point actually I make, and I think is very important, Ida, is that every industry will get disrupted in the AI age. So it's not that AI is for a few industries. Okay, so I
Right.
think that's actually the bigger point that I want the audience to understand here. Now, um, in that the broader change, there are some industries which are ahead on that maturity curve, some which are behind. The industries that are most ahead are the digital native industries themselves, which are, for example, social media.
Mhm.
That's probably the most further out there. There is retail, entertainment. These are the ones which are most further out, and then come financial services, and then there are maybe industrial, manufacturing, these public sector, these are relative laggards. Now,
Mhm.
what drives the difference in adoption? I think there are three major factors here. The first is that what is the current state of technology itself? Industries which have already modernized, which have a very modern um, infrastructure, and which are where the scalability needs are very high.
Right.
They have gravitated to AI a lot more rapidly. And these also tend to be you have a distinction between the new industries and the old industries. Yeah.
Mhm.
So a
Mhm.
lot of entertainment is relatively new. It's a very new phenomena, and therefore the infrastructure also they created has been new. There is less of legacy. Whereas if you look at some aspects, some parts of financial services, or a lot of parts of industrial manufacturing, these are very traditional industries where the infrastructure has been there's a lot of old infrastructure. So that's the first dimension, old versus new. The second dimension is perhaps consumer versus more enterprise or B2B. Now,
Okay.
consumer facing industries, again, the scalability there is a very different order of magnitude, and
Right.
and that's where AI is so powerful as
Mhm.
a scaling mechanism. And of course, you have to see AI along with cloud and digital. So the consumer facing industries tend to gravitate more naturally to the power of AI, versus more enterprise oriented business models. And the third dimension is regulated, that industries which are highly regulated, again I mentioned financial services and healthcare,
Yeah.
they tend to have more barriers, or more concerns, or there are so the need for governance, for internal risk and controls is very very high, which does slow adoption. So these are the three dimensions: old versus new, consumer versus enterprise, regulated versus non-regulated.
Non-regulated. Awesome. Thank you for that, Nitin. And then you also talk about a tension between legacy enterprises versus the new age entrepreneurs, right? So how do you see this tension playing out?
There's no tension, Ida. I would not describe it as a tension.
Okay.
It just the legacy enterprises, which is most of the business out there, have different set of look, they have existing business, infrastructure, processes. I think even more than that, a set of expectations with their stakeholders, whether the stock market or the boards, in terms of what that business is. Uh, you know, any a startup has much less of that. So my thesis is that unlike the digital age, where the legacy enterprises actually it was a great opportunity for legacy enterprises, because
Mm-hmm.
digital was a lot about taking what exists and then changing that.
Revising,
Yeah.
yes. Mm-hmm.
From the retail physical shop to e-commerce and so on and so forth. Whereas AI, the need for reinvention is much higher, okay, because the magnitude of the shift on the four forces is very, very significant. That as AI age progresses, the legacy enterprises might struggle, yeah,
Hmm.
because reinvention is not easy for them, uh, compared to startups, which is starting with a clean slate, and that reinvention, there is no there is invention for them. Yeah.
Right.
And
Yes.
in many ways, invention is easier than the reinvention. So I think that's the point I make, that unlike the digital age, which also spurred a lot of startup activity, but still legacy enterprises were able to do well. Um, in the AI age, it's going to be a bigger challenge for legacy enterprises. Equally, it's a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs, and I think that is the it's not a tension, but it is that's the reality that
Hmm.
legacy enterprises who are also my clients, that's the kind of firms that we at Inseedo mostly work with. I think that's the challenge or opportunity in front of them, that how do they reshape themselves.
Right. So, yeah, so like you rightly said, that the new age companies are starting fresh, so it's easier for them to do this rather than the legacy enterprises. So, from your experience advising so many legacy enterprises who are on this transformation journey, what are some of the assumptions that leaders still carry from the digital age that holds them back?
See, we've talked about it, Rita. We have had the basic thought process is still about today, or rather yesterday's business model. I
Hmm.
think that's the main thing. That while we say that there are these four forces, personalization, automation, innovation, and business model. Uh, and the most fundamental thing is the business model.
Right.
That I don't think that is getting there's enough conversation about that, or there is enough experimentation around that. That
Okay.
the core assumption being carried is the existing business, and for that existing business, the existing proposition and the existing processes. And then how do you, as if agentic AI is this magic wand, which will then, wash off all of your sins. No, no, no. Because, as you move from the business model to the proposition to the process, the scope of impact you can have
Hmm.
progressively goes down. Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, agentic AI is a great force, but you're applying it to perhaps the part of your overall business, where you will get impact, you will get huge leverage impact on your cost structure, which is helpful. But you probably have to do a lot more on the growth side. Okay.
Hmm.
And that needs a very different conversation. That needs a very different approach. And I think that is the gap that I see. It is still a lot more rooted in, we assume it is today's business, but it is really yesterday's business model, and the entire flow, not enough about envisioning the future, and that is where the needle needs to move.
Right. Thank you, Nitin. I think we're getting a lot of questions, so let's open the floor for that. We have a question from Deepak. Many companies invest in AI but don't realize meaningful business impact. What practical steps should leaders take to move from AI experimentation to measurable value creation at scale?
It's a it's a big question, Deepak. There are many elements. First, your statement is very true that a lot of pilots, but not enough impact. Now, there are multiple reasons that is the case. I see the first to me it starts from the what. Yeah, that what use cases or pilots are you focused on? And well, there is a lot to be said about let 1,000 or even 100,000 flowers bloom, but there is a lot to be said about something which is more anchored in the impact, that what is the impact for us as a company, revenue, cost, blah blah blah. How does that translate into problems to be solved, and that into AI use cases? That link, that link between the business objectives, KPIs, and then use cases, I think in most cases is highly missing. Is highly missing. Is very it's a very tenuous link, and that to me is the starting point, which is also what I've been basically saying in the various questions that Ida asked me. The second big gap that I see is just being able to operationalize the pilots. That even if a pilot is successful, how do you put this into production? Now, you have to recognize that the output of AI is a probabilistic output, as opposed to a more deterministic output, and therefore your stack, your tech stack, and equally there are many operational aspects that have to change to account for the nature of output that AI has, and that operationalizing is still, that infrastructure and processes are still catching up to that. So even if you have something which is kind of working, putting that into production or scaling that is not easy. Point number three is that see, today the output for a lot of AI, we is in that 50-70% accuracy zone. So what we have seen with the number of pilots is that they scaled up very fast. That there was a lot of initial promise, and then there is kind of they have hit some kind of a air pocket. They have hit a plateau, and one of the big reasons is context. That when you are dealing uh, with with actions or decisions which are very complex, it's not a simple matter of automating them, because there is a lot of context that comes in. So if the AI output is 50-70%, 100% minus that is context. Okay, and capturing that human context, and that's where the whole concept of ontologies comes in, is still, I think, one of the toughest problems that enterprises and tech companies like ours are looking to solve. So I think that's problem number three. And the problem number four is that AI, or this entire, I think there is an over indexing on on LLMs or Gen AI, and which, so I just wanted to make it very clear that problem solving is not equal to AI, and AI is not equal to Gen AI. Right now, there is almost like a direct link that has been made, that the solution to everything is Gen AI. I think it is highly erroneous and highly limiting. And because of, and that's one of the reasons why that the moment you're putting, any of these use cases into production, and you're seeing like a blow off in consumption, there is a blow off in the cost involved in doing it. And I think that's also something enterprises are working through, that how do you make that more efficient. It's not that the solution to every problem out there is Gen AI. It's kind of like using a howitzer gun, to shoot some peas. Okay, so there needs to be a more calibration in different problems, different approaches. So I could go on, but I think, Deepak, these are the four most fundamental issues I see: lack of alignment between what where business impact and the use cases, this challenges in operationalizing pilots into production, the whole the challenge around context, and then ontologies, and still we are working through that, and the efficiency issues that Gen AI is inherently very, very consumption and therefore cost intensive. And we need to find more intelligent ways of when we use what. Otherwise, I think ROI would be an elusive dream.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nitin, for that. And thank you, Deepak, for the question. The next one is by Sumit. Thanks, Nitin. AI is increasingly codifying and automating routine knowledge work. What becomes the non-automatable human edge in financial services or healthcare, and how should that be reshaping hiring, training, and career paths?
Sumit, that's a great question, and I think I think we have to think about this in at least two parts. Okay, so there is a short, medium term, and then there is a medium long term. In the short, medium term, and I already talked about it in the previous question, the very important thing about context. Yeah, that today the AI output is maybe 50, 70, maybe in some cases 80%. Most times it is closer to 50%. And that 100% minus that AI accuracy is the human role. Okay, is the human role, and the value where the human is adding value is in context. Yeah, that context typically comes from your domain understanding and the domain experience. Yeah, so the very first and a very important statement, Sumit, is that the technical skills become less important. Yeah, so if you look at the what and how, AI is extremely good at how. So all of us know it. It may not be top of mind that the fastest growing programming language in the world is English. No, so because it is driven by the work we do is not driven by prompts, right? So AI is very good with that technical aspect, whereas the what becomes more important, which is what comes through the domain understanding. So that's the first part of it, a shift from technical skills to more domain understanding, domain experience, which then has implications for the type of people and training and so on. So, but this is still what I call human in the loop. Yeah, this is human in the loop. But Sumit, we also have to recognize that the nature of AI is that it is continuously improving and compounding. No, so if even if AI is at 50% today and it looks somewhat underwhelming, over a period of time, that number will keep on increasing to 60, 70, 80, and so on. And consequently, the human contribution and role will also keep on reducing. Okay, so this human in the loop, which we talk a lot about at this point of time, will also decrease over time. Okay, we have to recognize that. And I think the from a medium long term perspective, it has to be human above the loop. Okay, there is a value of human in the loop from a short medium term perspective, but the long term, it has to be human above the loop, which is about envisioning, which is about direction setting, which is the entire conversation about the business model, the proposition, and so on, that the human envisions, AI does. Yeah, and I think that's the big deal. That is what the sustainable human edge will be. That's what I published my third book, Human Edge in the AI Age. That's what I keep on talking about. The human edge is very much it is there, and it is the core of it, but it's in a different way than what we think. It is not about competing with the machine. And of course, we have to collaborate with AI, but we have to recognize the compounding nature of AI, and it will keep on progressing. So yes, short, medium term, maybe the next 3 years, 5 years, the human in the loop will be very relevant. There will be a lot of jobs which will be human plus AI, and that's where the domain context is very important. But from a longer term perspective, it has to be human above the loop, and that's where creativity, innovation, bigger picture, all of those things become are the ones which will become super critical.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So the next question is from Arunesh. Can every business problem be solved using AI? How can we still protect the art of decision making? Will it be AI deciding for us?
Great question, Arunesh. I love that. You see, I already mentioned that yes, every problem can be solved using AI. And when you say AI, maybe you mean Gen AI. Yes, every problem in some way can be solved using AI/Gen AI. But should it be solved using AI, Gen AI in each case? And the answer is absolutely no. That's what I was talking about. Because right now it's almost like Gen AI has become this blunt instrument that any problem out there, Gen AI. Okay, that's completely silly and stupid. Okay, because see, that's the point I made. It's like you don't use a Bofors gun, a howitzer gun to shoot peas. Okay, there are problems which are, and I think still a significant proportion of problems which are deterministic, where a rules based um, you know decision making or a way of thinking, where an Excel sheet is fine. Okay,
Mhm.
2 plus 3 is equal to 5. Okay, you don't need to put that into chat gpt. Okay, it's a simple mathematical rule. Yeah. And then there are a class of problems where traditional now I'm saying traditional, but like more machine learning type of models would be appropriate. And there are absolutely a class of problems where you want to harness the power of data of the world. Okay, which is where LLMs or foundational models comes in. Yeah. So it's a great question, Arunesh, that there are different type of approaches. Those approaches differ in terms of amount of data needed and how probabilistic versus deterministic they are. Yeah, you can draw like a nice framework around that, perhaps, and perhaps I should do that. And yes, I think wisdom would be what class of problems should be solved with what approach. More rules based, more ML type of models versus Gen AI models. And yes, uh, I think the second part of your question, will it be AI deciding for us? Yes, I think AI can be helpful in that. AI can be helpful in that, which is to segregate different type of problems. And I think that's one of the great things, which now Gen AI is enabling, because historically that problem identification and then problem structuring, that you break down a problem and then how do you solve each part of it, that was a very human thing. But now AI actually is playing a great role in that initial part of the problem solving process, the identification, the structuring. Yes, the second part of your question answer for me is yes, but then the way you actually solve it, there could be different approaches.
Thank you. Thank you, Nitin. Uh, Ashwin asks, would you say that infrastructure costs to support global AI needs will push industries to come up with new business and commercial models?
Um, well, the short answer is yes, Ashwin, because uh, the infrastructure costs are going to explode. Okay, but I would perhaps, um, at least the way I would look at the question, the more salient question to be asked is that we have to challenge those infrastructure costs. Okay, we should not take the current approach to AI, that's what I've been speaking about, as a given. Okay, as a given. That, see, if you look at, you have to go back to the first principles. The basic approach behind a lot of the growth of transformer models and the way LLMs have grown is basically a drive for that mimicking human intelligence or human general intelligence, singularity, and so on. We have ended up making them more and more and more powerful. Yeah. And it keeps on getting back to that point that you have narrow specific problems, trying to solve them using these super powerful and very, very data guzzling models, is to me a highly inefficient way of solving these problems. And I think as more of AI goes into production and we start to do the maths, I think the maths will be ridiculous. Okay, there is a good reason why Nvidia is one of the most valuable companies in the world, which is not good news, is it? Like, it basically suggests so much compute. Okay, that compute translates into so many data centers. Okay, and so my son is in, he's just gone to college, and one of his first projects was to make a business plan for setting up data centers in space. I think that's where the thinking is going. It is ridiculous. Okay, it's a reflection of the amount of compute and energy that will be needed. It is going to be disastrous, not just from a cost perspective, but also from a energy and sustainability perspective. So my submission is that model of AI, and I think some of the Chinese approaches have given us have an alternate view, uh, which are more efficient, which may not be that fully all encompassing, but more efficient for solving different classes of problems. That has to happen. Otherwise, that is, to my mind, one of the biggest challenges which will limit, the realization of the AI opportunity.
Absolutely. That's so true that these models are not just uh, cost cost intensive, but also impacting the environment as well, right? So then there is a need to look for new ways of doing this. Okay, so Gajanan asks, how is agentic AI transforming business processes and decision making today? And what is it projected in the long term impact on completely automating or altering strategic business decisions?
See, Gajanan, how agentic AI is different from, see, automation has been happening for decades and decades. And not, it started with manufacturing, but even the human processes, over the last 25, 30 years, that was the entire digital wave, to transition from the physical or the paper to electronic or digital. It has been happening. Now, how agentic AI is different is that automation is not just of the task, okay,
Mm.
but of the decision making itself. That is fundamentally how it is different. Yeah. So we always thought, okay, automation is about just letting go of the more lower end task. Okay, so as a human, we can then move on to the more higher end task, which require decision making. Now with agentic AI, that's not the case. It's actually the decision making, which is also getting automated. That's the big thing, and it is also a self-correcting loop. yeah, which is the fundamental nature of AI. That's how it is different. And that is where what we are seeing is that, at least in the short term, the
Mm.
impact of AI is a lot more on knowledge workers than blue collar workers. Okay. That over the next 5 years, and the numbers are really astounding, that over the next 5 years, for every single blue collar worker job lost, 10 knowledge worker jobs will be lost. These are pretty dramatic numbers. Yeah, it is because of what we just discussed, that it is not the jobs at the lower end of the food chain, but the more decision making type of jobs, which is the classic knowledge worker, which is going to be impacted. Of course, in the medium long term, robots will become more competent, and for good and bad, the blue collar worker jobs will also start to get impacted at a much higher level than what will happen over the next 5 years. Now, the key issue in realizing the full potential of agentic AI, and I've already spoken about it, but in the near term, this whole thing about context is perhaps the most important thing. I would say that there is bit of a overhype in the short term, while I think from a medium long term perspective, it is underhyped. Okay, I think the long term impact is going to be very, very significant. I think the long term impact is that a lot of the current processes will move to autonomous. The human plus AI will decrease over a long period of time, and push to autonomous. But over a short period of time, um, yeah, I think there is a realization that context is not very easy to build. A lot of these pilots very quickly scaled up to a certain number, whether it's 50, 60, 70%. But really getting it to 85, 90, or 95%, depending on the type of process, where you can implement it, needs a lot of work. And that is the human role, that is the context, and that is where, as I've mentioned in a couple of earlier conversations as well, that's where the domain expertise becomes super critical.
Superb. Thank you. All right. Deepak Raj asks, what are the biggest risks enterprises should be aware of as they scale AI adoption across their organization?
Uh, Deepak, I've already talked about the cost implications a couple of times, that I don't think organizations fully understand it today. As AI scales up, um, the consumption costs, they are actually going to explode, because most times the technology, there is a high fixed cost, and then the OpEx goes down. Yeah, with this technology, actually the consumption is going to explode. I don't think organizations have fully factored that in. I think that's a very, very critical aspect to to understand better. I think the second thing, and again, I have talked about this a little bit, but let me explain that even more clearly, that end of the day, the output of AI is probabilistic. It is not deterministic. Okay. And therefore, also just the way the transformer models work, hallucination is built into it. It's very self-confident, that you ask a question and there will be an answer. Okay. So now that poses, and the seeming certainty of that answer, you would see that in our, you go to Chat GPT or Perplexity or Grok or whatever is your favorite medium, that it can be unnerving, no, that it's a very complex question, there is an answer, and you kind of take it as a given, no. But but there is a lot of hallucination in that. Yeah. and
True.
and so how do you establish, how do you make sure that you have the right training, of the models? How do you have the right kind of controls in place, where uh, inherently probabilistic output, you are able to ensure that it is as relevant as possible. And then along with that, a very big issue, and which especially comes in regulated industries like financial services and healthcare, is explainability. Because
Yeah.
unlike a rules based decision making, where why you made a decision is typically very clear, with AI, that's a black box. Okay. And then
Absolutely.
that's where explainability becomes extremely difficult to establish, but also very important. Yeah. So yeah, I think there is the cost side that we have spoken about quite a bit in this conversation, but equally understanding that the nature of AI output is probabilistic. Okay. And that poses all these issues around hallucination, traceability, explainability, which in many cases imply different operational processes, which enterprises haven't necessarily thought through yet.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you for that. And the next question is from Kaushik. He asks, Nitin, you emphasized when to use what, crucial for thriving in the AI age. Given the pace at which AI capabilities are evolving, what do you see as the most effective ways for organizations to build a scalable learning culture that ensures diverse roles continuously upskill and apply the right tools in the right context?
Uh, very big and tough question, Kaushik. And see, I think see, this is not a simple thing, and this is a much bigger cultural shift, Kaushik. And I think a couple of years back, when Satya Nadella took on the leadership of Microsoft, and famously he changed the culture from know it all to learn it all. I think that's the fundamental shift that is needed. I think we have to understand, Kaushik, that the shift needed for the AI age is not a shift in skills. There is a part of that. There is a part of that. But it is fundamentally a shift in mindsets. And that's where it is tougher. Okay. Because in a sense, the value of hard skills is certainly going down. We know that the value of technical skills, the half life is constantly reducing, from maybe 10 years a few years back, it's maybe now 2 years, that whatever technical skill, machine will master that. So I think a lot of our existing thinking about reskilling, upskilling is very limited. We have to understand the fundamentals of how AI is going to evolve. That short, medium term. I think the biggest insight I would like you to take away is that short, medium term, it's about human in the loop, and then longer term, it's about human above the loop. Okay. So if you understand that, then how one needs to evolve, whether you are a mid tenure professional, or you are just starting out, becomes clear. That's a mindset thing, because
Hmm.
most times as human beings we gravitate to what is in front of us, which is the existing process, the existing job, the task at hand. We know that even in our daily what we need to do, there is a immediacy or urgency kind of addiction we have of what is very easy to do, I will tick it off from my to-do list. Something which is more complex or ambiguous becomes more difficult. And it's the same with AI. Okay, there is a lot of focus on that, but the bigger picture, which is the future, is about the opportunity. And the whole purpose of today's session, where I've talked about every industry will get disrupted. The so what is that creates like this tsunami of entrepreneurial opportunities. Those could be opportunities for startups. Equally, those are opportunities for legacy enterprises who now have to operate as startups, or a collection of startups, perhaps a portfolio of startups, perhaps. And that is the big shift that needs to happen for leaders, for everybody in the organization. That's the mindset shift, and I think that is the big shift that we have to work towards at all levels, within the enterprises, but also in our education, educational institutions, also at home. That, how do we shift this mindset from, hey, there is a job that is to be done, and how do I prepare myself for that job, to, hey, it's actually I have to create. For creation, I need to know something about something. I need to take risk. I need to be able to experiment. It's a very different set of skills. And at all levels, and certainly we're talking about enterprises here, I think it is that mindset and those entrepreneurial skills that we should really focus on building. That will be future proofing. That will be future proofing. Anything else we do will be an interim step.
Right. Thank you, Nathan. It's not shift in skills alone; it is shift in mindset that really resonates. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm not very sure of the name. Rodra Shaw. Rodra Shaw asks, many firms can draft a brilliant AI strategy, but fail during the last mile implementation due to data quality or cultural resistance. From Incido's perspective, what is the single biggest non technical bottleneck you encounter when operationalizing AI at scale for a legacy client?
Yeah, you mentioned data quality and cultural resistance. See, look, I don't know if you meant data to be technical or non-technical, but data quality is certainly still a huge issue. Is still a huge issue, because especially as you look to train foundational models on enterprise data, and your ability to get the enterprise data together and at the right quality is still a huge operating issue. And I talk a lot about, if you go back to the four forces personalization. See, every enterprises I know of is aware of personalization. They would have also built some form of personalization kind of applications. The problem is that if the right data signals don't flow through, that
Yeah.
personalization will not happen. Okay, so uh, data quality, certainly is, I would say, if I were to say the number one uh, operational issue, I think is still that, and still in implementation of AI solutions. That is probably the number one issue today. I think this cultural resistance, it works in I think it works in subtle ways. That I think at this point everybody is aware of uh, the the role of AI, and there is a lot of top-down pressure. So unlike previous technology waves, which were maybe driven a lot more by the technology function, AI, there is a lot of pressure from the boards and top down, coming.
Right.
And perhaps at the mid level, there is a no, it's not that people say openly, I'm not going to use it, but there is a resistance in terms of changing the way people work. So it's interesting, beginning of the year when AI really started to play out, and my assumption was that the team pyramid or the organizational pyramid will move from a pyramid, where, of course, in a pyramid you have more younger tenured people at the bottom of the pyramid, and then it kind of narrows down into a lot more of a diamond, because as we have been speaking, that there is a lot more value to that domain experience. Yeah, so it should really be a diamond, that a lot of experienced people who would become more relevant. But I've had teams after teams after teams come back and tell me that it's actually the younger people. Give us younger people, because they seem to be a lot more change ready. and they seem to be a lot more effective with AI, compared with more tenured professionals who have who have more domain context and everything, so should be adding a lot more value, but they're just not change ready. So that issue is also certainly there. So yeah, I think both set of issues are there, but I would perhaps say that your opening sentence, brilliant AI strategy, I would take that with a pinch of salt. I see very few brilliant AI strategies. That's the point I've been making. That I don't think there is enough creativity. I don't think there is enough of really envisioning or re-envisioning the business. That there is, and we can see the questions as well. Okay, we can
Yeah,
see the questions as well, that 90% of the questions are all about how do we now implement this, which is very fair, but I think the bigger crisis that is happening at this point is a crisis of creativity, is a crisis of thought, is a crisis of how do we shape that future. We are too stuck in trying to improve the past.
perfect. Thank you. We are almost at the top of the hour, Nitin. So I know you've said a lot. Would you like to make any closing remarks?
Yeah, it's look, every industry is going to uh, change, in the AI age, and I think that disruption is going to create tremendous set of entrepreneurial opportunities. Those entrepreneurial opportunities are both within an enterprise and also outside, and I think that's the most fundamental point, that's the most fundamental and exciting point about AI, that it should liberate us to chase that, to create, yeah, not just to do. And so that to me is extraordinarily exciting, and that is where the human edge really comes in. There is, in the short medium term, there is a human edge, which is human in the loop and the context and the domain and everything, but in the longer term it is human above the loop. Yeah, I think that's what we have to reflect on. I think it's if we go that direction, I think that's a very, very exciting future, for the world and for all of us. But if you're only stuck in just automation on the existing processes, I think it will be just a diminishing pie, or constantly diminishing pie. So I think we have to take that bigger picture and the higher road, where we are using the power of AI in a true sense, to envision, create, and drive growth. That is really what is the message that I would like to leave everybody with.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nitin, for another insightful session. I truly, truly enjoyed it. And today's discussion took us a level deeper into how AI is transforming industries. And I'm sure it gave an idea to a lot of our viewers what leaders must understand to navigate this shift. I'm sure many of you are leaving us with fresh clarity and perhaps even more curiosity for what comes next. In our upcoming episodes, we will continue building on this momentum and explore the next set of big questions around the impact and implication of the AI age. So do look out for the invites and join us again for the third episode. For those who would like to buy the book, it's available on Amazon and the QR code will be shared after this. Thank you once again, Nitin, and a big thank you to everyone who joined us today and enriched the conversation. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sita. Thanks, everybody. Bye for
Thank
now.
you. Bye. Thank you.